Awesome. Thank you, everybody. You are here for you're with Family Voices Colorado's August Caregiver Conversations. We're talking tonight about decoding IHSS and CDASS and agency-based programs, and we will absolutely 100% define those acronyms for you, so we won't leave you with all the crazy letters through the night. And we're glad you're here. We do these webinars every month, and so here's kind of the upcoming ones that we have too. So every month on the first Thursday of every month from 7 to 8:30, we do these on a variety of topics that you guys have said you wanted. So if you have a topic that we haven't covered so far this year or don't have coming up or that you want us to redo, let us know. You can always put it in the chat or just email us or any of those things. We want to make sure we're doing these on topics that are relevant to you all. So I'm excited for the one we have tonight. I know it's a hot topic that lots of people have been asking questions about. Also excited about some of these coming up to, I was saying earlier, we have an amazing guest coming in September who's an adult with a disability, talking about kind of her life of navigating that and has some great advice for parents that are helping their kiddos navigate through what does that mean in socialization and all of those things. So I'm excited for that. Also, succession planning. What do you do when you are an aging parent of somebody with a disability or special healthcare needs? And how do you plan for the future? We're going to redo our children's Medicaid waivers one in November because we went from there being 4 children's waivers down to 3 waivers now. So we want to update that and make sure you have all the latest information. And then in December, we'll talk about guardianship and supported decision making, powers of attorney, all of those ways that you can help an adult with a disability who may need some assistance making decisions in their life. So excited for the ones that we have coming up. But today we're going to talk about IHSS and CDASS and agencies and those things. Just a reminder of who we are. So Family Voices Colorado, my name is Megan Bowser. I'm the executive director there, and we are a family-led nonprofit. So we are all parents of somebody with disability or special health care need of a wide range of diagnoses and a wide range of ages, and support other parents through that process through systems navigation. So that's like one-on-one, let's have a conversation about you and your particular family and particular situation and what might be resources for you and helping you navigate through those and access things that you may need. We do trainings like this. And then we try to bring issues to the policy level too. So we sit in lots and lots and lots of meetings with Colorado's Medicaid program or healthcare policy and financing, or HCPF, they're also known as, um, and also spend time at the Capitol and other policy-based meetings. We're also the Family to Family Health Information Center for Colorado and the affiliate of Family Voices National. I just mentioned that to know that if you've got friends or family that live in a different state, or you happen to move to a different state, that there is some organization similar to us in that state. So seek them out, get support from them as well. And our contact info is there. If you need us, please, please, please reach out. This is sort of a like, how do we give you a lot of information that will apply to a lot of different people and help you understand where you're starting. And then if you want to dive deeper into your particular situation, please reach out. And we've got a team of family navigators who can help you with that. So without further ado, I have an amazing guest presenter tonight who's also a mama and a professional in this world. And so I will let her introduce herself more thoroughly and share all sorts of amazing info for you guys. And then we'll be around to answer questions and all of those things as we go through too. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand as well as we go through. And then we should have some time at the end to talk about questions more as well. Amazing. Erin, I will pass it to you and I will stop sharing so you can share.
Great. Let me see. Can we get this figured out?
Can we
Hold
navigate the
on a moment.
technology?
It's gonna say, I'm sure I have some kind of window open. So give me a minute to figure out this Zoom control here. Okay. Okay. you can all see my screen now. All right, we're gonna do a PDF today because that's gonna be the easiest to just like scroll through. So thank you, Megan, for having me. I'll do like a quick introduction, but as Megan mentioned, my name is Erin Thatcher, and I am a parent of two kiddos with special healthcare needs and disabilities and medical conditions of all kinds. I feel like right now is chaos for me. So please, if I misspeak or I like don't spell out an acronym, please feel free to like raise your hand and put something in the chat. And yeah, we'll get started because we've got a lot of information for you today. So I am here on behalf of the Colorado Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing, or HCPF, and we are the state Medicaid agency, and we oversee all the benefits of our waiver programs and our state plan for folks on Medicaid. And that's all of our kids typically, because it's the only benefit or insurance plan out there that actually provides home care services to our kids. So I personally oversee our participant directed programs unit, which is everything from homemaker all the way up to CDASS and private duty nursing. So I have an amazing team of professionals that I work with, and they can't all be here tonight, but they all put in a couple of plugs for things they wanted to see us go over today. So we're going to really quickly go over some of the existing service delivery options that and you're probably familiar with within Health First Colorado. So we'll go over skilled care, and then we're going to talk about the different service delivery models available in Colorado. And then we're going to talk about CDASS and IHSS, in-home support services, and consumer-directed attendance support services. And then we'll have some time to kind of go over which fits best. And we've modified this a little bit to be like the parent version, because one thing I will admit is it's really confusing normally, but then if you like put in, well, I'm a parent, I'm also a caregiver, and then like I'm also a guardian or a conservator or whatever, it gets really confusing. So we're trying to like kind of narrow it down a tiny bit. Okay, so please feel free to put questions in chat, and Megan, please feel free to stop me if we need to take some of those. So you all may be familiar with our skilled care options in Colorado, agency-based, which are long-term home health, certified nurse aid, nursing visits, either brief or standard by a registered nurse or like LPN, licensed practicing nurse, and then private duty nursing. So those are the typical way that we get skilled care accomplished in Colorado. And then we've got this other option called self-direction, where we've got a benefit or a task or a service, I guess, health maintenance activities, HMA. And those are available in IHSS or CDASS. And I apologize, 1 minute. My child locked the dog in here. So give 1 moment.
This is the beauty of all of us that work from home and working in the evenings. It's like there is real life going on around us all. And I will add, feel free to put questions in the chat as they come up, and then I'll pause Erin as at good stopping points to ask them if you'd like. Go ahead.
You guys, all right, here we are. Chaos ensues like normal. Okay, so I wanted to put in this little chart of like what home health and private duty nursing kind of looks like. We've got our CNA, our like private duty nursing visits. Everything is pretty skilled. So we're talking about things that a nurse would normally do, or you need a certification in order to provide the skilled services. So all of these professionals are doing work right now in the skilled care setting, and a lot of times it's in the home care setting. For long-term home health and private duty nursing, the visits are kind of crazy, and you guys probably are aware of this, but depending on what service, we have a lot of different ways that services can be billed and paid. And then there's also this service authorization called prior authorization, or PAR request, that's reviewed for medical necessity prior to services getting approved. So a couple things I would say is like this is a traditional model that most states have. It's a state plan benefit in Medicaid, meaning that the state offers it to anyone who meets the criteria for CNA benefits or PDN benefits. So no waivers required. There's not other conditions, which makes it one of the more popular service delivery options. So I will mention that in Colorado, we permit parents to provide any of these services as long as they have that certification or nursing license. And so, again, one of the great things about Colorado is we permit that, well, where a lot of other states do not. Okay, so Community First Choice, CFC, I hope you've heard about this. If you have not, there's a lot of great information online. And after, I can put some links in the chat about where to find information about Community First Choice. But it began July 1st, and many of our waiver services moved to the state plan, meaning that we have more availability for members on traditional Medicaid to receive services like personal care and homemaker and IHSS and CDASS through the state plan rather than through a waiver. So we've essentially expanded all of our benefits pretty significantly. One thing to note is if your child does have a waiver, they can keep their waiver, and we actually recommend that. I shouldn't, I would recommend you keep your waiver, and then you can get CFC services on top of waiver services. Okay. So in CFC, we have many services, and these are just a couple of the options. So we've got personal care and homemaker, and those are in a non-skilled care provided by an agency kind of category. There's no worker licensure requirements. It's just anybody who can do the care. And they're in 15-minute unit increments. And the case manager actually authorizes this. So in Community First Choice, we have the case management agencies at the county level that will help get people enrolled and hooked up with services. The next one is IHSS, and then followed by CDASS. We will go into this a little bit more, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over this right now, but this will be a resource for you later if you're like, I cannot remember like who does what and how things go. Okay. So for those of you who are really familiar with our state benefits for home care, we've got 3 different kind of models. And I wanted to take a step back and do kind of an analogy about what service delivery is like. And so agency-based care, and in this case, we're talking about home health, private duty nursing, personal care, homemaker, where you're working with a home care agency that's a business and they help make sure that you get your services that are needed. We're going to do like a little transportation model here. So in agency-based care, we're looking at people who need services would wait at the bus for the bus to come. The bus is going to come at a certain time. You'll get on the bus. You have no control over who's driving, the route they follow, what the bus looks like, how long it takes to get there. You're just kind of along for the ride. And so kind of pivoting back to what that looks like for a member is that sometimes you don't want to or don't have the capacity to do all the things. So it's nice to work with an agency who's going to hire people for you, make sure things are done right, they're following the rules, they're doing everything they need to do to make sure you get the services that you need. However, you may not have a lot of say over how your services are delivered. And that's especially true with, again, the agency-based model. Okay, so next we're going to talk about in-home support services, or IHSS. So in this transportation kind of analogy here, this is like your Uber or your Lyft, your rideshare, where your members may, or the member can call up or like go in the app and say, I want someone to come pick me up here at this time, and they'll drive me where I want, and then I can decide all the things. But they aren't in control over like what car it is, who's driving, or even like the way that the Lyft app might work. So in IHSS, there's an agency that helps support people with some of the tasks related to their care, such as interviewing, hiring, training employees, and they're really there to provide backup. So they're required by law to provide 24-hour backup services for scheduled visits. They have a registered nurse who's on staff to help answer questions. And then they provide some counseling for members and families about independent living core services. So there's a little bit more control, you have a little bit more say, but you still have the agency there to do a lot of the more difficult things. Okay, so we're going to the Wild West, Consumer Directed Attendance Support Services, or CDASS. And in the transportation analogy, the member has their own car and they are driving where they want to go. They've got a license, they've got insurance, they have a car that's operating, they make sure that it's got active license plates and it has had a recent oil change and the tires are filled, and so it's a safe way for them to transport themselves and their family or their friends wherever they want to go. And so in this model, the member is really in charge of everything related to their services. In CDASS, we have the member as the employer. And in this case for kids, the member will have an authorized representative who kind of helps with that service authorization that is an adult, but they're making choices for the member in the member's best interest. So it's not a bus. And it seems a little terrifying, but CDASS is really the most independent option we have. It's very flexible. It's very malleable. There's some amazing things it can do, but you're really on your own. So if your car breaks down, you have to fix it. If you run someone over, you have to deal with that. And it's kind of jokey, but it's very serious. So I think I have one more, or I have a couple other slides, and we'll stop for questions. A couple other charts about the differences between services. So agency-based care is doing all the things for you. They're finding the people, they're hiring them, they're training them, they're paying them, the end. IHSS is kind of in the middle. So the member or their authorized rep can help with interviewing and selecting attendants and train them. They can help develop a schedule and make sure that like the backup plan makes sense for what they need. But the agency will do other things. And there's an agreement where they all identify how they're going to work together. That's called the shared responsibilities plan. We may not get to it in this presentation, but there's a contract in place for what the agency does, what the member does, and then what else might be needed from an authorized representative. And then lastly, CDASS. So the employer is the member or the authorized rep. They hire, interview, select, train, do all the things. And then for payment of attendance, they have something called the FMS, or Financial Management Services vendor. And that vendor does the payroll and like taxes and some of those more intricate employer responsibilities that are really necessary in order for this to work. Okay, and some common things that you might be familiar with on like the Medicaid side. So I tried to put in, what's required where. EVV, or electronic visit verification, is required for all of these benefits. There is a living caregiver exemption, but in general, they have to do EVV. Nurse assessor is required for everything but unskilled care. Essentra medical necessity review is only for that skilled agency-based care like CNA, PDN, long-term home health. And parents, can you be a paid caregiver? Yes, in all of these. And then lastly, base wage. So we have a base wage requirement that's in everything except for our skilled care. So the governor set a base wage of $15 an hour a couple years ago. It's up to $17.85, I believe, in Denver. And so that's in place for everything but our skilled agency-based care. Okay, I know that was a lot. Whoa, hold on, I'm going to pause. Megan.
Yeah.
Question.
So one was, can you sometimes take a bus, sometimes a car? So essentially, can you combine those different service delivery models?
So technically, you can kind of mix and match, but the one thing to know is that let's just say we have private duty nursing in place right now, and that's like the only way we're getting services. And PDN makes sense for overnight. Like, we're not going to change that. It's working for us. Like, we're going to use the agency nurse. They're going to show up. You can choose to do CDASS for the other services needed as long as they're not duplicative. So there's some ability to mix and match. It just can't be duplicative, and it has to be medically necessary. So we'll get into in a little bit, like, how do you decide what's right for me? And I think the cool thing about CFC is that we have this new flexibility that didn't exist before. It used to be if you went to CDAS, that was it. You didn't have home health. You couldn't do anything long term. You couldn't have private duty nursing, but that's changing with CFC. And then the other thing I would mention is if you're choosing CDAS for homemaker, but not for personal care, that doesn't work. You have to do like kind of bundle the CDAS services, which are homemaker, personal care, and health maintenance together.
Got it. It's the yes, you can mix and match, and it's not always ideal to mix and match, but you can if it is.
Yeah, we find,
Um,
I'll just say, like, from a policy perspective, we find that the mixing and matching when we've got staffing issues, or like it's rural Colorado and we're really not sure how we're going to staff like 24 hours of PDN. We can mix and match, but again, it gets a little complicated sometimes.
yeah, absolutely. The other one is for IHSS. What typical supports does the registered nurse provide? So care coordination, training. What does the nurse do with the agency?
Oh my gosh, great question. And I don't have my rules right up in front of me, guys, but I will say that there's about 15 things in regulation that an agency nurse needs to do, but they're responsible for care planning and supervising and skills validating any attendant. So they'll make sure that anyone who's trained to do the care can actually do it, and they have to demonstrate that in person. And they do a lot of oversight in the agency realm, and in IHSS, that registered nurse is like the only registered nurse that we have. So their license is on the line to make sure things are going well. So I can provide additional information in a little bit, but there's a lot that they're supposed to do, and they're supposed to be a resource for families also.
Awesome. I think one of those keys is there's lots of supposed tos that we've experienced. And Erin is way too professional to say it, but like most of us that have done IHSS have never received backup care. Or if we do agency based, we're still finding our own providers, even though the agency is supposed to do those things. So I think there's this like, it's good to know if you're using those models, what your agency is actually supposed to be doing. So you can kind of hold them to that some as well, but also know like, to me, it makes CDAS way less intimidating when I think, well, I've actually been doing a lot of these things already, even though I wasn't supposed to have to be. So
Great point, Megan. Great point. I agree with you in a lot of ways, and I'll also mention we are updating some forms to ensure that that members and families know exactly what the agency is supposed to be doing. So more to come.
love it.
Okay, so
Keep going.
self-direction for thank you. Self-direction for kids. So it's a little bit difficult to talk about self-direction for kids because we're thinking about, well, the member is a child. And so how can a child be an employer of adults when they can't really maybe participate fully in that, and they're maybe due to age or ability may not be able to do all of the work that might be required of an employer. So I like to share this list to just put in some perspective for what we'd hope self-direction looks like. So we want members to participate in their service delivery, and that could look like interviewing prospective attendants and like looking at the budget, reviewing spending, reviewing and approving timesheets, and then helping in that annual performance review if that's what you choose to do, and then helping with the schedule and like what tasks need to be done. And I'll just give a personal example. We did a budgeting thing with my kids, and we're like, okay, so if we were to do this, what would it look like? And they had very different ideas. And what I thought would work. So, I think it's something really interesting when you can involve the member in their service delivery and get their perspective on what it should look like. And I think our goal is to promote independence and autonomy as kids are learning and growing, and help them become as independent as possible so that when they become adults, they can perhaps do more of their service delivery and supervision and things like that. So, okay. So Nurse Practice Act, for all of you people who've worked in the agency-based model as an LPN or RN or even a CNA, you're very familiar with the Nurse Practice Act. But in CDASS and IHSS, we waive that. So what that means is that we don't take into consideration at all if you have a nurse license or a certified nurse aide certification. Anybody can be a provider or an attendant providing skilled and unskilled care, and we don't require a license. One of the downsides to this, and hopefully it's no one on this call, but if someone has had their nurse license or certification revoked or denied or suspended, they cannot be attendants in either IHSS or CDASS. It is actually against the law. So if you're one of those folks, you might need to find employment elsewhere. Okay. I don't know if we need to stop for additional questions or we can go on. Okay.
You're good. Keep going.
Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about similarities between CDASS and IHSS because they're very similar. They have the same services, so homemaker, personal care, and then health maintenance activities, which are skilled services. I don't have a list here, but you can think of everything in health maintenance as encompassing all the tasks in CNA or certified nurse aide and everything in private duty nursing, with the exception of complex wound care and assessment. So pretty much everything can be done in HMA. And that's a really unique quality of these benefits that is probably new to a lot of folks. So in both of these benefits, we allow family members to be paid. They don't have to be licensed or certified to provide that care. We do have authorized representatives or ARs to support some adults and all children. ARs are required for kids. And then all the services are authorized by the case manager using the direct care services calculator. And then members are helping with their services as much as possible. Okay, a little bit about authorized reps or ARs. The AR is a volunteer. They help with the administrative work required in both benefits. They cannot be a paid attendant. I'm going to repeat that. So the AR is a volunteer and they cannot be paid. Can't be Venmo'd, can't be you're my friend on the side, here's $20, no money exchanging happening. In
Erin,
CDASS.
can I interrupt
Oh,
you and ask a quick question about that too?
yeah.
Can an AR be paid for doing community connector if it's something that is outside of CDAS?
Good question. I would say probably. We in the past have denied case managers from being ARs because they're getting paid to help with some of these administrative things. I think as long as there's no intersection, we're probably okay. But I would run that by, if you're getting trained through Consumer Direct, I'd run it through them or the case manager.
That's a question I've heard a lot. So I'm like, while we're on the topic of what ARs can get paid for, I want to ask it before I forget.
Yeah, we're getting into really interesting territory here. So, which is not a bad thing, but things we haven't really fully thought through. So I'll put that on the list of things to maybe put in our FAQ. Okay, in CDAS, the AR is the legal employer of record. So that if you have an attendant, that attendant is the employee of the AR. So I would be the employee of Megan. Cool. Okay, the AR supports the members' involvement and they do different things like hiring, training, scheduling, paying attendance. And then in IHSS, it's a little bit different. ARs are really there to help communicate between the agencies and the family. It's really just a supportive kind of role. They don't have a lot of responsibilities outside of signing some paperwork. Okay, so the high level, children are required to have an AR. They can't be paid if they're an AR, or if they are an AR, they can't also be a paid care provider. Megan, I will work on clarifying that. We have to look at the law to double check on the community connector. And then we just recommend that the AR is a person who's involved in the member's life and who can dedicate the time necessary to help with paperwork and services. And I think I cut something off here, so apologies. We don't require the AR to be in state, but they do have to be at least 18 years of age or older. And there are some other requirements that we may go over if we have time. Okay. All right, so service authorization is done through case management. So our case management agencies work with families, they figure out a care plan, they do something called a direct care services calculator, which helps figure out how much time it takes to do homemaker, personal care, and health maintenance tasks. And then if there's some skilled care, that would go through the nurse assessor, which we won't have time to go through here, but there's great resources online. And then there's also, for children, we have to take into consideration the age appropriate guidelines. I think we've got that here in a moment. We sure do. Okay, so for age appropriate guidelines, anybody on CDASS or IHSS or personal care, any of these pediatric models, we need services to be age appropriate, and they must be for the benefit of the person receiving services. So the guidelines were developed based on the Iowa Ages and Stages model. We worked with a vendor out of UMass to figure this out for kids. A lot of you participated in those, the development of those guidelines, and they are posted online, and we can share a link here in a moment. One of those, this is an example of what it looks like, but for example, we've got bathing, and we talk about what the definition of bathing is, and then different age spans, so like the first 5 years, and then up to like 18 plus, and then there's some special considerations. So like, you know, if the member is skilled at bathing, like that should be skilled. We may not have any time in an area because it's typical to bathe your child, you know, until they're 5 years old. So there's a whole document about all the different tasks, and they're really different depending on what is necessary. So we'll provide a link in a little bit. Okay, any questions before we dive into CDASS?
There aren't any in the chat. Does anybody have
Okay.
ones you want to raise your hand and ask? Twice. Y'all are so quiet tonight.
We're just like soaking it in.
I know.
I'm very
It's
proud
good.
of you if you haven't fallen asleep yet, because if you're like me and the amount of doctor's paperwork and like school stuff going on right now, I don't know how we're all still awake. Okay.
It's a little thing.
All right. So before we get into CDAS, some terminology
Well,
and
we
some of,
didn't pause quite long enough because
oh,
2 questions came in as soon as we
okay.
started. All
Here,
right.
we'll pause.
What do we do if age appropriate guidelines aren't being followed? Example, we're being told only one caregiver can be paid at a time.
Okay. I would say I need more information to be able to answer that. So let me see. I don't know if I can, like, I don't think I can chat and run things at the same time, but I would recommend maybe emailing my team so we could look into what the situation is. Everything should be individualized based on what the member needs. And so there may be instances where you need 2 people, but we'd need to really have that documented. Like, is it because of weight? Is it because of behaviors? Like, what are the people doing? So more information would be helpful.
I'll put the participant directed email in the chat.
Well, thank you, Megan. You're hired.
No, no. All
You don't
right.
need another job. You're good.
No, what somebody else said, what are common questions you get asked? They don't even know what to ask half the time, which is totally fair. You don't know what to ask when you don't know what's there. So
I think towards the end we'll go through like what makes more sense for me, because I think there are some pieces that we don't usually talk about in the general setting, like, because again, kids are different than adults, and this is really new for kids. CDAS is brand new for kids. So let's get through it a little bit more. And then if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat.
Cool. Then one more, and then we can keep going. If my AR is a friend, and they're an IHSS paid parent for her child, can she continue to be our AR? So can you be paid as a care provider for one kid and be an AR for a different kid?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great workaround. It's really about direct payment from like the member to the member's authorized representative that we would maybe need to take a look at, but that's totally okay.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. So CDASS terminology. This is like we're going to be learning a whole new language here today, folks. So allocation or budget is the money that's set aside to pay for the services. The attendant is our caregiver or aide or DSP, DCW. The AR we went over. Consumer Direct or CDCO is our training and support vendor, and they do the training for CDASS. And they also train case managers and agencies and a bunch of other folks, but they're the ones you'll work with as the AR or the member to get trained in how to do all the things CDASS. The Financial Management Services or FMS is the contractor who pays attendance. They do taxes, they do withholding, like they do all the financial stuff. So think about it like a glorified accountant. Okay, and then lastly, Participant Directed Programs Policy Collaborative or PDPPC is our monthly self-direction meeting. It's very similar to CDAC. It's been going on like 15 years. We talk things CDASS and IHSS. So anyways, we encourage you to join us if you're so inclined. Megan shows up, so she might just give you the download. Okay. Okay. CDASS basics. So these are the ABCs of CDASS. Members pay attendance using a budget established by the case manager. There is no home care agency involvement. And maybe we do like a little emoji break. Like everybody pick an emoji for how that makes you feel. No home care agency involvement. I think where are the emojis here? Are they in the more and then or maybe not? I don't know where they're at, Megan.
It's the heart on the bottom of your screen. You can get to all of them, but that's also where they hide the hand raise now too.
Ah, okay. We'll
Where
try it. We'll see. Okay.
but you got it's both the like excited and shocked. You've got the celebration or the fear in there.
Like, ooh. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. So attendance can be parents or family members, and then we waive the Nurse Practice Act, which again, all the safety things that exist kind of go away, and that's terrifying. Okay. Oops. Let's see. Okay, AR requirements for CDASS. They're a little different for IHSS, but the AR must attest that they meet these criteria. These are established in law. So they must be 18. They cannot have been convicted of a crime of various reasons. They must have known the person for at least 2 years, and they need to ensure that they don't have a condition that could result in harm to the eligible person. So we're talking attestation, not like background check and like all the things. We're asking you to say, yep, I meet these criteria, and then you're in. You have to do the work to get CDASS up and running and do the payroll and things like that. But once you're an AR, there's a lot of ways you can support the member. Okay, there's 8 steps of the enrollment process. And I want to pause for a moment and just say CDASS is really dependent on how motivated you are and how much time you can dedicate to like getting the things done. So in the 15 years I've been doing this kind of stuff, working in self-direction, working at the state, I've seen 2 kind of things happen. The first is like the fastest enrollment of all time. They got a referral in on a Monday, and by Friday they were up and running. And that was like wild. They did all their training, like had people on board to hire. They all were really responsive. They got it done. That is a little unusual. I think most people are like a couple months between the referral to getting onboarded and like services starting. The other end of the spectrum, I've seen people like never finish training or it takes like a year and a half. And so it's all about how motivated you or the AR is to get the stuff done and, respond to emails, fill out the forms, do the things you need to do, and you'll be fine. Usually we kind of say on the case management side, if someone doesn't want CDAS or if we're worried about them being able to self-direct, if they can't get the forms in, that's a good sign. But it's up to you. It's not up to us or case management. It's up to you, the member, family. So I won't go through all of the steps here, but essentially you've got to be on a waiver or CFC. You've got to do an assessment, do the paperwork, and then get people hired, and then services can begin. Okay, so before services begin, there's the 4 important things. 1 is complete all the enrollment steps. Number 2, participate in the assessment and service planning, so the ASMP meeting with the case manager. And then 3, complete orientation. So that's our training about CDASS and budgeting. And then 4, you have to have 2 attendants in CDASS. They both don't have to be working all the time, but you need to have 2 enrolled attendants before you can begin services. Okay, budget development is like we could go into this. I did a CDAC presentation a couple months ago that went like really deep into budget development. I pulled some of that out here, but essentially we develop a budget based on the case manager's assessment of the member's needs. And so they take the services needed times the hours per week. So it's like I bathe twice a week and it takes 30 minutes. And so I'm getting 60 minutes for bathing. And they add all of that up. And then we have something called the monthly allocation worksheet. So that takes the pay rates or the service rates times the hours, and you get a budget. And that budget is available for your care. So it goes into a bank account basically, and then you withdraw funds against that bank account. The funds are distributed by the FMS. So after you get your budget, we do a prior authorization request to get the PAR, and then the PAR and the budget is sent to the FMS so that they can accept timesheets and you can get paid and everything is good. That's a very high level. I don't know, Megan, if you want to talk about like how this looks to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just throw in there that that budget is similar. So if you've been doing IHSS, there's a certain amount of money that Medicaid pays your home health agency for the care you're providing. And then your home health agency takes a cut of that money and then pays the providers out of after they've paid for all of their insurance and overhead and administrative and all of that piece. Under CDAS, the amount that comes from Medicaid is very slightly less, but it all goes into this pool to be paid to the care providers minus a very minimal amount of overhead. And so the pool of money that goes to the people actually providing the care in CDOS ends up being a lot more than it is under the agency based or IHSS. So it's a lot of administrative paperwork, but like we're able to pay our babysitter enough to actually get a babysitter who's really good and wants to support us through CDOS versus under the IHSS rates that was really hard to do. So it's navigating the budget is complicated, but you've got more money to use, which makes it worth the effort in our case at least, but not in everybody's case.
Really, no,
I
it's a,
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Myra asked, "Can you provide a percentage of how much more?" And it's not. It. I wish it were that clean cut because we also like switched to CFC, so we switched and added more services that we didn't have before, and so. But I think most home health agencies end up taking like 30 to 40% of the Medicaid reimbursement rate, and so I would say it's probably like 20 to 30% more than you get through IHSS when you do CDOS, if not more than that.
Yep, and I would add, Megan, like okay, the pay rates for example, for health maintenance, and I might say the wrong rate, but let's just say one health maintenance unit is like $9.47 for 15 minutes. It's the same in IHSS as it is in CDASS. But then we take off a 10.75% overhead adjustment for CDASS, so it goes down a little bit. And then, but all that, the rest of that money goes to the budget. And then there's what's called a cost to you, which is like your employment taxes and things that because you're an employer, you have to pay like unemployment and workers' comp and some of those things. So it's that's another small percentage. And there's actually some worksheets that you can use to kind of look at what this is going to be. Both FMS vendors have a little chart where you can say like, I want to pay my attendant like $19 an hour. What's that cost to me? So, employers have to pay things too. And so we make sure that we have enough money set aside for those things. But yeah, in general, like the amount going to the attendance is much higher. And then I don't know if we have it here. Let me see. We'll get through one more. The allocation. Okay, so the budget right now, there is an overspending cap in CDASS, meaning that you can pay above the monthly budget up to 129.99%. You can save money too. So like if you have a month that, let's say it's like you don't have as many care needs in August as you do in July, you can save money from your allocation. You don't have to use it all, but that's considered to be a reserve fund. This is actually changing like very, very soon. So more to come, but essentially this, like you have an annual budget and you need to be able to manage that effectively. And if you don't manage it effectively as the authorized representative, the member could get terminated from CDASS. So it's really important to manage the budget well. You might have some low months, you might have some high months, but at the end, you're not going to get any more money in your budget than you got in the beginning. And if you run out, like you're all done. It's not like I don't know, cash machine or anything. The other thing that's interesting about our budgeting and because we're looking at employee, like you're an employer or the AR member, AR is the employer. If you overspend and there's not money in the budget, you have to pay them personally. And that is not very fun. So it's a legal requirement that you have to pay your employees for time worked. So if you ask them to come in for 4 hours and you don't have any money in your budget, you have to pay them yourself. And then if you don't pay them, you could be the subject of wage and hour complaints or violations. We had one lady in the CDASS who would interview people by having them volunteer for a shift, and she never paid them, and she ended up having like $6,000 in fines from the Department of Labor and Employment. So anyways, those fines are yours to deal with. And I would just say this, be in the best interests of your attendants. Like if you're going to be an employer, be a really good one and make sure you pay them. Okay, we're going to go a little bit into the FMS, which is, again, the payroll kind of entity. They do the new hire paperwork. So if you're hiring on as an attendant, they're going to send you all the forms you need. Most of them are digital at this point. It's pretty quick to get enrolled. They do payroll. They do have an established cycle of twice per month, but there's some other options, and I don't recall them off the top of my head. They handle all of the federal, state, local taxes, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, sick time, family, Colorado Secure Savings. So all those required deductions from a paycheck from the employer and the employee side are handled by the FMS. And then they do administrative support. So like if something's going on, they might reach out and say like, oh, we need more information, or they could help you with employment paperwork or tax information. And then they have customer service who's available if you have concerns. Okay, and in Colorado, we have 2 contractors who do FMS. I'm going to just mention this real quick. If you're hearing from your population that there's new ones, they're not, like we've heard, I think this week I've seen like 5 different ones come through that like are claiming they do FMS, but they are not our entities that we've hired. So we pay these vendors to do this service for you. It doesn't come out of your budget. It just comes out of our state fund. So Palco and PPL, they've both been in Colorado for some time. And here's your little QR code if you want to find them. Okay, questions?
All right. I'm gonna do
Oh, here, let me go
several.
back up to the,
Yes. I'm
okay,
gonna try to do them in an order that makes logical sense. So if I'm not doing your question in the order you put it in the chat, we'll get to it. And if I don't, remind me. Okay, on the FMS stuff, do does CDASS allow for overtime, holidays, and health insurance? So can you talk about some of the other benefits the FMS kind of people do?
yeah, absolutely. So, so that yes, overtime. If you work overtime, they pay overtime, but that's an employment decision. So your pay rate is set by the employer. So your member slash AR, they set the pay rate. I think the max pay rate is up to like 58 something an hour. So you have to at least pay the base wage, so 17.85, and then the max is 58.09. So employer sets the pay rate. If there's overtime, it comes out of your budget. They offer sick time through the sick time required by the state of Colorado, and then family leave. So family with an I, they administer that. And then Colorado Secure Savings, which is like a 401k option for people who don't have it through other means of employment. They do not have health insurance. So that we'll get to that in a little bit. But like if you need health insurance, CDASS is not the way for you. If you're hoping that your agency can do that for you, they do not have insurance.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a big piece that the state does not pay agencies time and a half. When you work overtime, your agency has to take that out of the overhead they collect from the state. So if you're doing CDAS and you have somebody working 100 hours a week, you have to budget for 60 hours of overtime every week. So that'll eat through your budget really fast. Um okay, what was this one? So if you want to keep PDN and use the rest under CDAS, your monthly budget will just be less. Is that how it would work? And you just make sure you aren't taking a bus and a car at the same time.
Bingo. Good job. You're hired.
Good job, Danae. Okay. Then so kiddos high level needs acute 23 hours a day. The husband and her take care of her and they never have luck finding additional help, but they can't pay themselves for more than 24 hours of care, right?
Yes. Do you want the CDAS answer to that?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay. So let's say your child is authorized for 24 hours of health maintenance activities, which is totally possible. And they have a giant budget, like the most hours they could possibly get. Now, we would say 24 hours of care is not permitted unless it's like medically necessary generally. So if you need a two-person transfer or something, we might approve that at the state level. But with CDAS, we give you your budget and then you work with it as the employer and or the authorized representative member employer, kind of all the same thing. So a lot of times what families do is they'll pay someone more and use less hours. So they get like maybe a better quality person, paying them $40 an hour instead of like, minimum wage, basically, and getting like, I don't know, you could technically use like more than 24 hours in CDAS. It's all about budget management. So as long as you have money in the bank to pay people, and as long as you are making sure that the services are kind of in the parameters of what CDAS is, so we're talking personal care, homemaker, health maintenance, as long as they're doing those things, we don't really have visibility into what the expenditures look like. We do get reports, but it's not the same as like an agency. So you could pay less and have more coverage, or you could pay more and have less coverage. And I think the other challenging thing with CDAS is if you don't have backup care and you only have like the two people working, you're going to be pretty burnt out pretty quickly. So if you're interested in CDAS, I think building a pool of attendants who can work and provide backup care is crucial. And then on the side of that, we don't have respite in CDAS, but technically, if you hire someone to be your caregiver for a couple of hours to do personal care, that's technically like a respite type of activity. It's paid out of the CDAS budget, but we just like it can't be duplicative of other respite, but that's another way people kind of use their services in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, we've done that where I can pay a babysitter a higher rate. So they're doing respite, but they're doing it under CDOS because when they're doing respite, they're doing all of those cares and things too. I think it's
Mm,
that like mental shift that in CDOS they use those evaluations. That's like you get X number of hours. They use those evaluations to determine your budget. So the hours determine your budget. But once the budget's created, you're not beholden to those hours at all anymore. So you can decide what you're going to do with that money. You don't have to make it match the hours that justified that money. And that's a weird mental shift to do. So I often will say, like, if you qualify for 20 hours a day and you could pay that at $20 an hour, you could do that. Or you could say, I'm only going to take 10 hours a day, but I'm going to pay them $40 an hour instead. That's totally within your rights under CDOS and within what you do to make it actually work so you're getting the actual support that you really need.
totally. It's
Um,
very, yeah, so like mind blowing. But the other thing I'll just add real quick is like there are certain things that aren't permitted, like snow removal or pet care, or like, it has to be like a benefit that we pay for. And we have had some instances where, the feds will come back. So CMS comes back and says, we need a care plan for this CDOS person. And we'll use the ASMP, which is like the care plan budget, and we hand that to them. And they might contact the member and say, like, give me your, like, what did they do? And that gets really intimidating. So it's helpful to have like established care plans or like a list of things that people are supposed to do and their schedule. Like, this is a business if you think about it like that. But the more prepared you are, the better it is for everybody.
other questions from the chat. Are you required to pay overtime in CDOS?
Wow, good question. So, there was a recent change on the Fair Labor Standards Act or FLSA at the federal level, which may have implications, but at this point, we require overtime as a state. So, if you're working overtime as the state considers it, then you have to pay overtime. If that changes, we will let everyone know. It
Sounds
is different than a per diem though. Like if you're coming from a place where there's a per diem, we don't do that.
All right, here's a kind of can of worms question. Are living caregivers tax exempt like they are with IHSS?
Yes. Well, hopefully, yes. We're waiting on the IRS, but yes. Let's think
Should be.
positively, folks.
But in the meantime, keep your person on a waiver and
Yes.
CDOS and IHSS, and then we're all like really close to 100% sure it's yes.
Yeah. Stay on the waiver and you should be good.
Okay, the max $58 whatever pay rate, does that include overtime, or with overtime you can go up to like 75?
So the
I
max
asked
pay
this
rate,
question when I just did our CDOS enrollment because I wasn't sure either.
I'm pretty sure it's like the standard rate and you'd have to pay overtime on that rate.
Yeah. So
We have a little calculator
58,
that we use.
yes. 58 is not like somebody can make more than $58 an hour in overtime. So their base rate can only be 58, but then in overtime it could be, yeah, whatever,
Which
one
can
and a
I
half.
just say that's like it's a lot of money.
It is.
It's a
And
lot of
and
money.
feels excessive. Like we didn't put any of our people close to that because it just feels a bit excessive at that point. But yeah,
And like maybe you need a nurse to do a cath or something, and like that's the only way you can get someone to your house. I don't know.
yeah, totally. Okay. So she said, say that again. If we get X number of hours for something from the nurse assessor, we don't have to keep to that budget for that thing.
You have to stay to the budget. You don't have to match the hours. Like, so if you have 2 hours for bathing, you can just like, we're gonna use 2 hours, we're gonna use part of that for bathing, but other part for like transfers. Like we don't, when you, so, okay. Some of you might be in like, and so you're probably agency caregivers already for IHSS or CNA or something. So you know when you're going into the app to like clock in, I did all these tasks. CDAS doesn't have that. So it just says HMA or holiday rate or whatever. Like it's not that specific. So it's like CDAS is like the thing. And so even like on the state side, we don't have any visibility into like what goes into those hours outside of how much was billed. So
All right. If a child's on the waiver uses IHSS and CFC, are all hours tax exempt, or is it only IHSS hours tax exempt? So you're
oh
talking about
gosh.
like if they do community connector too? Is that what you're talking about, Callie? Daily? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not a community connector expertise, but I will say that so 2014-7, which is the IRS notice for like living or difficulty of care. It's related to waiver payments for or payments for waiver services. So technically, community connector is a waiver service, but because it can be done in the home or community, like but so IHSS, Homemaker, HMA, CDAS, like those, if you've got it doesn't even have to be a relative, but a living caregiver, like that waiver requirement is there, but that income should be tax exempt. Again, we are waiting for a decision from the IRS, and we've been waiting for several months. So more to come. If that changes, there's some options around it, but Megan and team could probably help you with that more than I can.
Yeah, it's tricky because we all give any tax advice with this big disclaimer that, like, we're not tax professionals, so go seek one out. But this is what we do. So, yeah. Okay. For CDOS and being prepared to show what care was done, would it be similar to can time, like the charting things right now with IHSS agency puts in a care plan? Would that then transition to the parent putting that together?
Yeah, yeah. So if you were the member's AR, you would want to have a care plan. The care plan could be what we call the ASMP or the Attendant Support Management Plan, which looks pretty close to like the IHSS care plan. Um, that comes out of training. So when you go to training with Consumer Direct, like you'll get this output. So you could use that. But it's always helpful. Like I like to think about, okay, everybody has an emergency plan, right? With like your doctors in it and like emergency contacts and your vet information. Like you need to make sure that any attendant who's going to come work for you knows how to do all of the care that you need them to do and the information to be independent in their job. So think about it like a business. Like if you have someone working in your home, what do they need to know to get the job done? And I find most people are successful like with a documented list of tasks that they need to do and a schedule. That's pretty helpful. And I would just say more documentation is better. We're not going to at the state not we're not going to ask you for it typically, but the federal government does audits pretty regularly, and sometimes they'll come and say, hey, we need a schedule for this person, and usually we can say CDAS. We don't really have that, but we can refer them to the member to check in or the authorized representative. So
The reality is you have to provide the time they started working and the time they stopped working, and anything else is up to the member or the authorized representative on how much you want to collect and beyond that.
mhm.
And that could be different for different people, for different attendants. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
So I have different expectations of like my husband, who I know knows how to take care of our kids and know he knows what he's doing, versus a brand new babysitter who's coming in. I want to be a little bit more rigid with some than others in terms of what I want to know.
Yeah, and I'll just add this, like on the example you just mentioned, Megan, what if that babysitter who becomes an attendant and she's paid in CDAS, what if they end up like not liking their job and you're not, it's not a good fit, and so you need to terminate and they file an unemployment suit and then it's like in hearings with an administrative law judge, like that's a reality too. So if you're the employer, you can be faced with some of these employment related things, which might include, again, having to terminate someone. So more documentation, I think, is better, just in the event that like it's a he said, she said, or like some kind of contentious issue. Anyways.
Um, is there a calculator that parents might be able to do to help estimate what their yearly budget for CDAS and any difference in budget for adults? Was looking for guidance for adults with high medical, losing PDN on DD waiver and switching waivers. There are a lot of us.
Oh
So
yeah.
I
Okay. So,
uh, I'll link the allocation worksheet in the chat.
oh, thank you. Okay, so yes, we have worksheets that you can plug in the things and just play around and see what happens. So the direct care services calculator is the hours per times, and then the allocation worksheet is like the rate times the hours. And then I will just mention this for like the DD waiver, like having that switch. I think a lot of people want to know what they're going to qualify for. And it's really like really contingent on the skilled care needs. I think most people I've seen on the DD waiver would not switch over if they didn't have some skilled care. But up to you. I don't know. I mean, maybe DD is working just fine, but
And then this question we've seen a couple times. Can they do the CDOS training prior to their CSR so they can get a better idea of if that's a good fit for them? And if so, how do they get that to happen?
absolutely. Okay, so all of the training is available online, and it's available at Consumer Direct's website. There's CDOS training. There's a big manual, and please keep in mind, everyone, this is typically developed for adults with disabilities. We are brand new to kids, so we don't have like kid-friendly manuals at this point. So just kind of keep that in the frame of reference. But you can read the manual and walk through the things that are needed. You can get the forms that are needed and get those signed before anything else is really required. But again, the more you put in, the quicker it'll go. And I hate to put you on the spot, Megan, but you just went through this. Did you guys start on 7/1?
We started 7/1 and it was a roller coaster to get there, gotta tell you, but we made it. But I do think it's good to keep what you have in place right now while doing the CDOS process, so you don't have, like us, this, like, looming deadline that, like, if we don't get it all done by this date, then we're having a gap in coverage, that being able to start it sooner and having more flexibility, I think, is ideal in
Yeah,
most
and
situations.
I'll add that if you have IHSS, and let's say you're on IHSS, you've got your continued stay review, you've done the assessment, you've done the nurse assessor, you've done all that stuff, that number of hours is just going to be like calculated into the allocation worksheet. So the hours aren't going to change from like CDAS to IHSS, but it's pretty easy to switch over. And but I think, yeah, having something in place in case is really helpful. It doesn't have to, like, you don't have to wait for your plan year to come up. You can switch to CDAS at any point in time. Although I think case management would probably yell at me if I said, go do it now. I think you have to wait until there's a change of condition or your CSR right now.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, do you have to wait for the referral to CDOS or can you do it yourself? So did your case manager have to send it?
I'm really trying to work on that to get that to go away. But for now, yes, you need to have a referral from case management. But as a great potential AR, you can do the training, you can get the form signed and deliver those to case management and say, I've got all this done for you. Please send a referral in as soon as possible. And case managers have 5 days, I think, to send the referral in, which I mean, it's like a one-page thing. It's very simple. But depending on what else might need to be done, like if they need a new assessment or something else, it may take a little bit longer to get that going. And then Consumer Direct, when they receive the referral, they have like 24 hours to contact you and give you information about training. The training options are self-paced, like on the guide that's listed online. You can also do training with a peer trainer, which is usually an adult with disabilities. You can do in-home training, you can do group training. There's like a lot of different options. So just know if you start looking at the guide and you're totally overwhelmed and you want to take it a little bit slower or have somebody walk you through it, there's those options. But yeah, the referral is required at this point in time.
So, I somebody had posted before too, that, like, I'm afraid I'll forget how to drive mid driving. And I think like Consumer Direct is the people who do the training, and they're there to help support you along the way. So you're not like totally on your own. There's people who are there to help like walk you through and coach you through it. So
Absolutely. And they have something that they do called information and assistance. And if you're a waiver member or CFC member, you can get information assistance free. There's like people who can help you with all sorts of things, self direction related. But one really typical thing is like, I need help developing a job description and like posting on Indeed or like Nextdoor for my attendant. Like, I need help with that. Can you help me find an attendant? And like, they do that all the time. So they're there to help with getting into self direction. So even if you haven't like started or you're in IHSS right now, you can get information and assistance through Consumer Direct for free. So it's a great resource.
awesome. Okay, I think I hit most of the questions in the chat. If you want to keep going with it, if you've
Right.
got any more, and then
We
we'll
we're
each
gonna
other.
do we're gonna do the which fits best. So I want you to be thinking about this, like really thinking, okay? So I have a circle of trusted friends and family that can help my child with services, either by being an attendant or authorized representative. Do you feel that that's like really a yes or is that a no? And just be like honest with yourself. Like, right now, I think I'm a yes, but I've been in places where that is absolutely a no. So if it's a yes, IHSS or CDASS may be a good fit for you because it's helpful to have it like a network of people who can be there to help. And they can be attendants if needed or to provide backup care. If you don't have that, it's not a barrier. It's just might make it more difficult to find people and to have that pressure of like, oh my gosh, how do I find someone to hire to do this work? Okay. Um, Next, I am a licensed professional, CNA, RN, LPN, and I prefer to work in an established company where I can gain CEUs and skills advancement. Are you a yes? If so, agency-based or IHSS may be the best for you. CDAS doesn't have CEUs. The company is John Smith LLC. Like, it's not as, it's very loose. So we definitely get people who are RNs and LPNs working in CDAS. That's really common. But they do it more of like ad hoc or like I'm going to come do a catheter change or I'm going to do something else really specific to that nursing. So um, if you aren't a licensed professional, like I am not at all, I can work in IHSS or CDAS because I don't have all these fancy degrees. So be thinking about that. Like, how important is it that the employer is supporting your professional growth? Because I think that that's a big challenge for a lot of folks. Okay. If you had to write out a job description tonight about someone to care for your child, how would that make you feel? A, excited, I have something in mind, or B, ooh, I might need to like use AI, Google, help me figure it out, and then C, I don't have time for that. Okay, what are you really feeling right now? I think right now I'm a C, but maybe in like September, I might be more like, oh, B might make the most sense. But I'm going to say this, like if the paperwork and if all of the work that is required in CDAS is overwhelming to you, you don't have to do it. IHSS could be a valuable fit for you, and you can have a lot of control and like say in how services happen. You can help with recruiting, training, scheduling, um, and then if you have something in mind already, then CDAS would probably be great for you. Okay. 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 Next, this one is like kind of unusual, but I'm not able to be a paid caregiver for my child. I'd prefer to have someone else assist us. And this is maybe not anyone here, but if you're not open to being a caregiver, any model could work for you. It's really about like how you want to contribute and participate. And you might consider being an authorized rep. Like you're still involved, but you're not doing like the day-to-day care. And let's be honest, if you're a parent, you're always going to be doing some care. But I think one of the things that we've realized recently is like we can't do the, full lift of the 80-pound child. Like we may need to either get some more equipment or have someone else come do it or what have you. Like, so I think it's really important as you're working with your child and in your personal situation to figure out if you actually want to be a caregiver. And it's okay to not want to be a caregiver. Like, I mean, you're always going to be the parent. But. Okay. The last one, maybe your kid doesn't need skilled care. What makes the most sense? So you could still use IHSS or CDASS, but your child would need an AR. So that's kind of a little bit of a barrier, like to get another person to manage things. But otherwise, if there's no skilled care needed, agency-based care with a Class B home care agency is a great option. So as a parent, you can be paid to provide homemaker up to 10 hours per week per parent, legally responsible person. And then personal care, whatever is deemed necessary for your child. So parents can still provide care, but you don't necessarily need the AR if you're not using CDASS or IHSS. Okay, we've got some resources here. So our CDASS website, Consumer Direct's website, and then more information about Community First Choice. And I realize there's a lot of things happening right now, big changes, like it's very chaotic. We're trying our very best to the department to provide timely and helpful information. But if we didn't answer something or there's like a gaping hole that you see, please reach out to us so we can work on getting it into an FAQ or providing clarification via memo. And then I'll make sure to put more information in the chat here in just a second. So any questions? How are we
Here's one.
feeling?
Yes. So can I do 10 hours of homemaker and also pay someone for 10 hours or 12 hours or 3 hours? So the 10 hours is only for parent, but the
Well, the
person,
legally responsible person, which is technically the parent of a minor child or the spouse of an adult.
yes, I always forget about the spouses of adults, but not the parents of an adult is a big important kind of.
Yes, no, parents, we're out of there by that time, hopefully. I'm kidding. We're never done.
Um, okay, does homemaker and personal care only come through the nurse assessor? I just had our child's annual with the home health agency and they only went over HMA.
Oh, okay. So, if your child's on a waiver, the case manager might do that part of the direct care services calculator. The nurse assessor is trained to do it, and I've seen them do several homemaker personal care hours, but I would check in with your case manager about it.
And then, oh, this one hits to my heart. If a family has multiple children on CFC, can the same authorized representative serve all of them, or does each child need a separate AR? Because this was super confusing for me because it messes with overtime too. And it gets so complicated. Okay, go ahead, Erin.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So, all right. A person such as Megan could be an AR for multiple people. She could. So we have some ARs that are ARs for like 10 people or 15. They, as long as they meet that criteria, like I know you, I've worked with you, I'm not a criminal, then they could be an AR. I think what's challenging, and every situation is a little bit different, but let's say your kid has extensive care needs and like has 20 hours a day of services approved. As an attendant, no one can work more than 16 hours across services. So like, and that's across members too. So like there are some limitations. So you may need to get creative with like what makes sense on the AR side and what makes sense on the attendant side. And so some families like split it up. They're like one kid has this AR and the attendant, and the other kid has a different AR, and then the other attendant, and they switch it up. And then some people find a family member to help out with that. Again, we don't require the AR to be in state or like be present for all this stuff, but they need to be familiar with your situation and what's going on in your life.
Yeah. What we figured out was if I was the AR for both of my kids, and my husband was the care provider for both kids, if he works 40 hours with first kid and then is going to do another 10 hours with the second kid, all 10 of those hours with the second kid have to be paid at overtime, which they won't let you do because I'm the employer. But if he was being paid and there were two separate ARs, then there's two separate employers and it doesn't run into the same weird overtime issues, which is totally in the weeds. But you asked a kind of in the weeds question. So there you go.
And
That
this
if
is
you've
like
got this,
Consumer Direct.
huh?
Consumer Direct is so good at like helping with this stuff. Because some people need to have two different FMSs. Like that's just feels like a lot. I think the other challenging thing is, yeah, well, again, everybody has different circumstances and situations, but I think the one thing that comes up a lot with the AR is like, oh my gosh, like my kid needs something and my attendant is unable to do the care. Can the AR just switch to being an attendant? And the answer is no. Like you have to get a new AR. And then like as soon as you can get that person trained and like up and running, then you can transition over. But it just, I think that's where CDAS gets complicated. It's like you have to prepare for the worst and have a good backup plan before you even get going.
Yep. Okay. Now I gotta find the question I was gonna have you answer that I lost. Uh, Sorry. Okay. For families who aren't familiar with IHSS, can you explain how the current budget looks compared to the CES budget? So, like IHSS hours versus CES budget versus CDAS budget, they all, I think, are kind of blurred together for some people.
Yeah. Okay. So because IHSS is part of Community First Choice, it's in the state plan now. It used to be in the waivers. It's some waivers, but it's not anymore. So if your kid is on CES, they have CES waiver benefits and there's caps and limits to what services are available. The services on CES cannot duplicate or be duplicative of things approved in the state plan, like IHSS. So let's just say you've got a kid who has a bunch of respite and community connector, and you want IHSS on top of that. It can't be duplicative, so there's got to be a good care plan. And what we used to inform people to do or ask people to do is like put together a schedule. Like, okay, we're going to do community connector every afternoon for like this amount of time, and then we'll go home and we'll like do IHSS for like cares or like bathing, dressing. So you can have both, and the IHSS doesn't count against the limit on the waiver. But duplication is kind of a thing. And then there's the 10 or the 16-hour attendant limit, which goes across benefits. So if you're like doing community connector and homemaker and personal care and HMA and CNA, you're probably going to hit that limit pretty quickly. So maybe consider taking a break from some of those hours.
And being able to pull other people in under CDOS has been glorious for us to actually have
No,
more support.
it is amazing. Like if it works really, really well.
Yep.
And if not, you might learn that it's not for you, and then you can change to something else.
Next question is, if we choose CDOS and get totally overwhelmed, could we change back to our agency options at our next CSR or before?
You could change at any time. I would say case management does provide like really, maybe not intensive support, but they're really there the first couple months, like to check in and make sure, like, how's it going? Like, do you need anything? We also have Consumer Direct who does information and assistance, or INA where they can help. So, we try to tell people, try to give it like 90 days and just see how it's going. Because again, it's a lot of work and it's turnover and like, We had a family recently that had, I think they went through like 4 different agencies. They weren't happy. Then they moved to CDASS, and then that was a disaster. And this attendant had like 7 different W-2s that there are W-2s that they're waiting on and like trying to track down. I'm like, oh, like you stuck with this family. Good for you. But also, I think try to give it a chance, see how it goes. And who knows? I mean, I think most people are I think CDAS has had a pretty stable population for like the last 10 years. So we're hoping to get more people with CFC and opening it up to the kids.
Awesome. Also, quick question, and we'll do a longer one. The nurse assessor happens yearly, so our hours may change year to year? Question marks on both of those.
Yeah. And it's based on what's going on. So if there's a change in condition, you can do it like you can get another assessment.
Okay, and then I have 3 children on CES and already keep a master schedule for all their services. As we transition, which route would you recommend for our family, IHSS or CDAS, and what factors should we consider when deciding?
Well, I think the first factor is how happy are you with your agency? Like, do they have amazing benefits? Would they provide IHSS? Are they an IHSS enrolled provider? Most of the Class A's are now enrolled in IHSS. I think they've been working on it for a couple years, but I think the satisfaction with the agency and agency benefits and that kind of thing really tends to make it or break it for people. If you're like open to change or like, you want to get paid more, then CDAS might be the best fit for you.
Mm. I think it also when you start butting up to where you're approved for more hours than you can actually bill, especially with the new 16-hour per day limit, CDOS can help you relieve some of that too, to where you're not just leaving things unused, but
Uh,
especially if you're struggling to find other people in there. Okay. Is it a duplicative service for a child to receive feeding therapy 1 time a week and then the parent caregiver follows the therapist's recommendations outside of therapy? We were informed that we have to choose whether the therapist or the parent is paid for meeting the child's needs.
Ooh, okay. I would call that so as a feeding therapist, are they an SLP? Okay, maybe. I'm going to assume that they're an SLP or speech and language pathologist or speech therapist. And if they're billing through home health, like I think that we would approve that. Like I can't see us not approving that, but they would probably develop a home exercise plan or home plan that you would follow. So would consider we would consider like the time for feeding with the time like outlined in the home exercise plan. So if it's like, work on feeding every meal for like 45 minutes, case manager would probably include that. But thinking that a feeding, it might be skilled. So there's a lot to unpack there, but I would say talk to your case manager about if you have one. If you don't have a case manager yet, I would work on getting a referral going. I don't think they're duplicative personally.
I don't either. Okay, then how do parents get health insurance if on CDOS?
Ooh, loaded question. Okay, so a lot of people go through Medicaid, like the Medicaid caregiver option. Um, that might be changing though with the federal government changes. So I would say this: most people who are on CDAS are using Medicaid also. Difficulty of care, they don't have income, they're able to qualify for Medicaid as a caregiver of a person with a disability on Medicaid. I am not the expert on that, so I might defer you back to Family Voices who might be able to help you with that. Um, yeah, I feel like that's a big kicker. That's why I work. I need health insurance.
And it is a hard one because the marketplace isn't great. And if you have other incomes so you don't qualify for Medicaid, then that is for in my perspective, like if health insurance is super important to you, IHSS might be a better fit for that. Okay, we are at 8:30. We've got a couple little questions in the chat that I've tried to answer kind of as we've gone along. In -1 minute, can you talk about the 16-hour per day cap a little bit more? And then we'll say adieu to everybody.
Yeah, perfect. So the 16-hour day cap is in effect for private duty nursing, long-term home health, IHSS, CDASS, personal care, homemaker. And essentially it's just saying like it doesn't make sense for a person to work over 16 hours a day. And we have that happening in a lot of places where people don't even get breaks. They don't get days off. Like, and we have agencies relying on like one person to do all of the care. So in the spirit of ensuring we have great service, like the services are happening as medically necessary, and ensuring our caregiving workforce is like sustainable, we instituted this 16-hour cap. And right now, it's really managed at the agency level. So, like your employer has to report back to us that you're that they are ensuring that you are working less than 16 hours or no more than 16 hours per day. That can be waived in the event of an emergency, or if there's like some circumstance that pops up and it's an emergency situation, you can do that. The FMSs manage it for CDASS. And it's across agencies. So you may get asked by your agency you're working with, like, do you work at another agency doing another service? And if so, can you provide that information?
Thank you so much. And thank you, Catherine, for the reminder about the survey. I just put it in the chat if you don't mind filling that out. I knew I was going to need the reminder, so I appreciate it. Thank you all so much for coming. I put our Family Voices email in the chat somewhere. It's info@familyvoicesco.org if you need more help from us. And Erin put lots of the HCPF staff who work on this on the slide. So if you didn't get your questions answered, please, please, please reach out to one of us to get them answered, or we can talk about individual situations more and are happy to support you all. Thank you for spending your evening with us. And thank you so much, Erin, for jumping in and presenting all this awesome info.
Absolutely. Happy back to school, everyone. I wish you safe school journeys.
We will all survive August. Good night, everybody. Thanks again.